All right, we are live. Thank you very everyone for coming. We have Katie from Kathleen J. Lightworker, Ali from Heart and Soul Connected, our guest host, and Benebell Wen. And
Yay!
we're very excited. Thank you very much for coming and welcome one and all to our premiere of the Diva Den. Or the
Hi,
Diva?
Sophie, Katie, Allie. I'm so excited.
Oh, this is great. Thank you for inviting me as well. Look at that. And now I got to go get it. It's on my list.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
It's
I mean, you are so have so many. Wear so many hats. I was telling Ellie about all the things you do, and she actually teaches Taoism, and she's a professor. So
Professor Allie, very nice to meet you.
Thank you. I use it in my humanities classes, and we talk. And anytime we do literature, I include the Tao because I love it. It's wonderful.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
cool. So you are a lawyer, you are a writer, you are an occultist. How do you do it all?
I think a lot of it is just training from a very young age. I grew up in a very strict household. My father was very Spartan, very militaristic. He came from a military background. And so he applied that very West Point style discipline to us. In fact, literally one time I visited West Point and I thought, oh, this isn't that bad. This is just like every day at my household. So I think because that was driven into the way I was, how you walk, how you talk, you have to rise before the sun, how you have to work till you're raw to the bone. That kind of drilling into me is why I think I am able to do as much as I can. It's not that I can do more than other people. I actually think it's because I have higher pain tolerance.
Ah, okay.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I heard your
Okay.
story on one of the one of the collaboration you did, where your father was teaching you to play tennis, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was a move you couldn't do very well, and he kept going at it. And yeah, I heard that. Yeah, and so you've been practicing tarot since early teenager, I believe. Like you were in high school when you were practicing tarot, were you not?
Junior high, but I wouldn't necessarily call that practicing tarot. I mean, you're 12 years old. I don't know how sophisticated I was with the tarot. I was really just reading at summer camp for my friends. Does he like you? Will you pass your math test? And then you look up every single card meaning in the book. So I don't know if
Yeah,
that's tarot, but I mean, yes, I've been exposed to the art of tarot from a very young age.
yeah, yeah. So it's very important to understand the tarot card meanings in order to grow your intuition using tarot, is it not?
Yeah, I think there's many different schools of thought. I know right now the more popular, louder voice is, throw out all the books, just use your intuition. I would argue everybody uses their intuition, even if you study, everyone uses intuition when reading the tarot. But there is this school of thought that you don't want to be confined to card meanings or standards that somebody a long time ago has set into the cards. Another approach is that those card meanings in books actually memorialize a universal collective unconscious understanding of the card meanings. And so you're tapping into that and almost remembering the card meanings rather than learning the card meanings. Of course, I think
Okay.
I the second count, right? And so I do think studying the tarot does really help us to recall our connection to the collective unconscious. So that would be the approach I would take. You would definitely want to learn some set of quote unquote standardized card meanings, but don't rely on it if you're doing an actual tarot reading. So
Very
it's like a
Jungian.
Okay.
Yeah. Very Jungian approach. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, what is your most important or significant spiritual experience, and how did it
Oh,
change you?
wow. This is not a great one. So my cat died, and so I don't have children, and because I don't have children, my one and only cat, which I raised from a kitten who was 4 weeks old. So I raised a
Oh.
cat from 4 weeks old until about 14 years old, and that gives you a sense of how close we were. And
Yeah.
he had his own room. I treated him like a son. He's never been put in a cage before. When I go to the vet, I wrap him up like a baby and I like hold him like this. And so
Oh.
like you get a sense of this, right? And
Yeah.
he died in a way that wasn't great. You know, the caretakers that I left him under, thinking that they would take care of the cat, ended up starving the cat, and the cat died of urinary tract issues because he
Oh.
was dehydrated and he died of starvation. And at the end, his legs weren't working, so we had to stop work for 3 weeks to apply 24/7 hospice care. Anyway, that's the background of that. So after he passed on, I knew he was around, and I don't know how to explain the whole thing, but like I cursed the people who were involved in his death, and I also felt his spirit around, and it was almost like I cursed because I was selfish, and I think in doing so, a lot of the way all of the energies were around, a lot of the energies and bonds got intermingled, and I felt like his spirit wasn't able to move on because of something I had done out of
Okay.
selfishness to try to get vengeance. But then it was all me. And anyway, so then having to reverse all of that, having to find a way to release his spirit. And these are all admittedly very religious beliefs, right? So this is all my personal gnosis. But then I think that whole process, that was, I think, the most recent spiritual awakening of some kind. And I use the word awakening because it was a realization, you know, that
Yeah.
some things that we do that we think is spiritual, or that feels so right to us, because I have to confess, in the moment, cursing felt right. But
It
then
did. Sure.
learn how to to learn how to transcend that is so hard. To learn how to that's not right. That's selfish. We're going back to Freud. It's like your id talking, right? It's that impulse that's right. It isn't a greater concept of what's for the greater good. So that was an awakening for me.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah.
It's I think it is a great experience because you talk about cursing those people, but at the same time you learn from that well, it didn't get anywhere. It just hurt others around.
Yeah, it hurt
Sorry. So
everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly,
Including yourself.
exactly.
Right. Including
I have
yourself.
the
Yeah.
worst eczema. So all of a
Oh,
sudden
I
I had
bet.
a huge flare up of eczema.
Yep.
And I went to so many different doctors. I went to an allergist, I went to a skin doctor, a dermatologist, and no one could tell me what the source of the problem was. And then I finally, I didn't know how to reverse the curse. So I actually had to ask my mom for help. She was so pissed. And then once she helped me through that, my
Yeah.
eczema, just as mysteriously as it came, it went away. So how do you
Good.
explain that?
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's an excellent
It's an
example,
excellent
actually.
description.
That
You
Yeah.
explain it really well. Yeah, you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, um, I think that's a great segue for to talk about spirituality, Kathleen. Go
Okay.
for it.
Well, you know, I found that I had an NDE in 2002. I had an aneurysm and I died in the back of an ambulance, and I saw light beings and all that kind of stuff. And everyone is very, very, um, they really want to know, they want to hear and everything else. But, you know, I found that people ignore things that are miracles every day.
They do.
When a baby's born, at birth, it goes from the breathing of a liquid to breathing air. There's a valve in their heart from their heart is used as it pumps, it gets into the rhythm of making the blood flow, because until birth, at the moment of birth, that closes and the heart actually does its job. Before that, it you know it took the mother's blood pressure of going through the umbilical cord to give the baby nutrients. But everybody thinks, oh, you're having a baby, oh, that's great, and
Yeah.
I just wanted to know, as an occultist, how do you help people to realize, how do you help people to see that their experience is special, their experience is, I people keep saying, oh, you had an NDE, oh my, but it irritates me. And I'm sorry, I got a migraine, so I'm trying to articulate. But you see
Basically,
what I'm saying?
It's a really good question. I think for me, because I don't identify as a teacher, I don't see myself as a teacher. And I do have a pretty strong stance in terms of non-interference. I don't know that I would try to change somebody's mind. If they see something as a miracle or they don't see something as a miracle, that's their journey. Unless I was point blank directly asked by someone and I understood what kind of person they were, I'm not sure I would try to sway somebody's opinion or definition of a miracle. And so you see, in terms of that, I don't quite know how to answer your question. Now, in terms of my personal view, I agree with you 100%. I really believe in the miracle of life, the miracle of the everyday. And there's so many things, if you listen in stillness, you can see so many synchronicities at the micro level that we just completely ignore. And if you really deep dive and try to philosophize on these synchronicities at that micro level, it stumps you. That's a miracle, because you don't even understand how it works. Even something as simple as a tarot reading and the way the tarot reading plays out, or even what it does to your mind, how it triggers recall or triggers intuition and psychic ability in you. If you try to think and process that on an intellectual level, you can't.
Yeah.
And so that's a miracle as well. And so for me, I do really see that. And I think that gratitude of the minor miracles really gives you a great framework for looking at life and navigating this life. So I agree with you 100%. But if
Beautiful.
somebody doesn't see miracles in that same way, I'm not sure I would say anything.
Miracles and messages. I went for coffee. I came back, and the first sign I saw on the side of the road said, "Rough road ahead." And I know it was because they're doing construction, but no, it was another message. It was for me. It was for me because I saw.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. I'm recently very interested in shamanism. And then I got to thinking about shamanism, Taoism, and Buddhism have a lot of similarities, but there are some key differences. But I just wondered about, since you have such knowledge, if you could kind of share the basic tenets of Taoism and how it can kind of correlate into many different beliefs.
With shamanism, I distinguish between, maybe it's shamanism with a capital S, I don't know, but there's the shamanism where you're looking at the etymological root of the word. And so you're talking about the particular shamanistic practices that forced out of North Asia. And then because I think in the 13th, 14th century, you had like the Mongolian spread westward and also west northward and into Korea. So because of the way history played out, you have the etymological influence of this word shamanism that we now blanket apply to many different forms of spiritual practice. So then there's the lowercase shamanism. That's kind of a more generic word that we've used in our vernacular to describe any kind of tradition of almost a form of mediumship where you have somebody journeying into a different level of awareness, journeying to a different level of spiritual, I guess, existence of some kind or world or realm to bring back messages to the conscious level of awareness. So that is a generic sense of shamanism. Now, Taoism is more twofold. One, it's a philosophy, how you approach life. And two, it's also a theology in terms of there is a very strong sense, there's a polytheistic pantheon, there's a sense of folk religion, there's ritualistic practices associated with Taoism in tandem with the philosophical concept of Taoism. And so within this structure, you, of course, have a lineage or tradition of going into a spirit realm to bring back messages. And that would be the generic sense of shamanism. And I think if you look at any culture in any part of the world, in any society, there is a form of shamanism. I would even go so far as to argue that today when we go see a psychiatrist, that is in its own way a form of shamanism in today's world that's a little bit more acceptable than the more historically documented forms of shamanism.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just love talking to you. Okay.
Beautifully said. You have a very wonderful way of articulating an idea.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
Really
thank you.
good.
You're just
I always think I'm just
awesome.
rambling.
No, you aren't.
No, not at all.
Light workers, what is your advice for everyday light workers?
My everyday advice for light workers, it's actually ridiculously simple. It's just to be good. And it sounds so stupid and cliche, but I think it's hard to remember to do that. I think in terms of light working, people can get too heady, like too much in their head where they're caught up on the greater good. They're caught up, and you joke about it, but it's like basically they get caught up on trying to achieve world peace. And I don't know if that's necessary. I mean, there is that greater sense of purpose. Of course, you want to aspire for that greater sense of purpose. That's your target goal. But on the everyday, to achieve that, you have to take it baby step by baby step. And I see, if I'm to be critical, I see a lot of people who want to achieve world peace, using that as a metaphor, right? But then on the everyday, overlook and ignore so many opportunities to help somebody out. And so I think that would be my advice, is to kind of go back to the granular level and the little things that you can do, the micro personal sacrifices that aren't necessarily a huge sacrifice that we can do on the everyday to build toward that world peace aspiration.
Amen.
Yeah. So pretty much, if we go by the definition you gave us, pretty much everybody can be it has a potential of being a light worker.
Light worker is a choice. I think it's an absolute. It's a decision to. It's a choice for on what type of path you want to walk. Do you want to walk the path of light, or do you want to walk the path that's only rooted and directed by your most primal urges?
Okay. Because we were thinking about, yeah,
being awake. No, that's
being
what she's
awake.
saying.
Yeah, being awake to it. So, because many think about Martin Luther King as being, a great light worker, and they think that to be one, you need to get to that level. But every day you meditate and you send good vibration, every day you smile at someone, at a stranger, you're lighting up his world or her world. You don't know it, but you might. So, okay. That's cool. All right. Do you have any questions so far, Ali?
I'm enjoying this immensely. I think that the other thing I just want to mention about Taoism is, it's considered to be the way. It's a way of living.
Yes.
And that's what the light workers do. It's a way of living. It's being fully conscious, living fully conscious. And she's explained that so well, really. And I love the explanation that you gave of shamanism, because I do believe you're right. I don't think it's one particular thing. I think it can be in other areas of the world. And I love my daughter's a therapist, so I agree. She's probably somewhat a shaman. And
Yeah.
so I never really thought about it that way, but I really love that. And
Yeah.
Kathleen told me a little bit about your book and what kind of things. I know you're probably going to go into that, so I don't want to bust into any questions, but I'm really excited to be looking at it, because you're coming from such a holistic view. The name of your book is Holistic Tarot. So I use more cards oracles than I do tarot. Your feeling on oracles? Anything?
I do love oracles, but one thing I did want to caveat about the title Holistic Tarot, I don't agree that it's holistic.
Oh,
I think,
don't?
No, because holistic to me means that it's multifaceted in terms of looking into the spiritual side, right? It's spiritual medicine, it's psychic medicine that is integrated into more medically documented forms of healing and recovery.
Yep.
Anyway, so actually, the book title was supposed to be Tarot Analytics. But, for SEO reasons, for marketing reasons, the publishing house felt like it wasn't a great title, Tarot Analytics, because I wanted to actually apply a rational-based, logic-based approach to the tarot. It's very, very specific. It's actually not holistic at all. And then the publishing house came back and said, let's call it Holistic Tarot. It's a better title. And, this is my first book. You don't want to be that
I know. I'm sorry.
right?
Wow.
Oh, no, it's great. It worked out great. Holistic Tarot is a catchier title. So from a marketing standpoint, you were absolutely correct. It's just that then I feel like when people critique the book and say, she's not holistic at all, I'm like, yeah, it wasn't holistic.
Wow. Like it's your fault. Yeah. Okay.
Well, it's my favorite go-to reference book.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I agree.
And
I printed.
and I was so desperate, I went from being I was a nurse, and I always had to have, instructions. So I was thrilled when I found a reference book.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, if you go to Belle's website, benebellwen.com, I believe. I'm always there, but I always type in metaphysician planner to get to your website. She has the study guide from a beginner's level to an intermediate level to an advanced level. I printed the beginner's level here, and yeah. And basically, you can go through a whole course. Well, it's more than a whole course. It's the whole thing. But if you start with the beginners, it gets you started to maybe read for yourself and try to grow at that point. In everything that you learn, there is all the definitions, all the I'm looking for my word.
It's more rote,
Meaning?
like rote learning, methodical learning. Yeah, it is.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and then the intuition comes in. You bring the intuition, and the book Benebell wrote brings the method and the information on the cards.
Thank you. That's how I felt, because I feel like I wasn't equipped to teach somebody intuition. That's a journey that each individual has to take. And I was afraid if I talked too much on the intuitive psychic approach that people see something in writing and they feel like they have to follow that. And if you do that way and you don't achieve your psychic potential, you think you're the problem. You think you're wrong, but that's not the case. The problem is every one of us has a very individualized journey in terms of actualizing your psychic potential. So my way is not necessarily going to work for you. Your way isn't necessarily going to work for me. So for me to get too bogged down on describing that can actually do more harm than good. But in terms of
Right.
learning, this means this, that means that, this is the definition according to these different historians and different occult masters that we recognize as our pillars in this community, that is a rote form of learning that I can bring to the table. And so that's what holistic tarot or tarot analytics was.
Yeah. Anyway, I really enjoy it. But now, shoot, I lost my page. Astrology. I'm interested in astrology. I'd like to know more about it. But at the same time, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, what is astrology and how can it help me grow? How can astrology help?
I think astrology and alchemy, one thing I like to go back to, especially when people really don't know where to begin, if you look at Carl Jung, said that in the first half of his life, he had all these books on alchemy and astrology that were left on his bookshelf and he ignored it. And it wasn't until the second half of his life that he really revisited alchemical texts. And then you also had Isaac Newton, who was fascinated with alchemy. And anyway, so if you were trying to distill this into psychological terms for the modern day reader to accept, the reason we look at alchemy and astrology is because these are great studies where you can look at the composites of archetypes. And it really espouses Jung's theories on archetypes very well and how they work together in a form of chemistry. And so if you want to understand the self, the whole point of Jungian theory, I think it's analytic theory, is to individuation, which is to understand yourself. And to understand yourself is about finding the individual in the collective unconscious. How do you define the self? By making yourself whole and union and bringing union to all the different opposites, the polarities inside of yourself. When you look at the tarot, when you look at astrology, these are systems that are built on polarities and elemental dignities. So when you look at elemental dignities in tarot, for example, fire and water, air and earth, how they conflict with each other, how fire and air go together, and how water and earth go together. So these actually come into alchemy. And then the alchemical concepts were built into our concept of Western astrology. And you see that in Eastern astrology as well. So looking at the ways the chemical composites in astrology give us a sense of the very underlying engine of the tarot. And so it's about looking at what is actually fueling the tarot. It's like peeling away the layer of the card that's all pretty with the paint job and looking at what's making it run on the inside. So that's what astrology is. When you look at esoteric tarot, the way tarot as a game during the 1400s transitioned into tarot as an occult or esoteric tool, the occultists were looking at Hermetic theory. They were looking at how astrology connected this one thing, the cards, to something greater, to that collective unconscious, and using Jungian terms. So I look at astrology as the language that has augmented the tarot from a card game into the language of understanding the self. And so
Okay.
I think it's so important because the birth chart is important. And when you look at the I guess it's called horary astrology or electional astrology, the timing of it, the astrological correspondences in the tarot cards, they go toward understanding, I guess, just synchronicities, you know?
Okay. Okay. So Mercury retrograde. I've never paid attention to that. But this week has been a heck of a week for me. And I think it was at its peak or something like that, or it got to its peak, and I don't know. But it was in my mind. So could your your psyche
Yeah.
be influenced by the astrology,
The knowledge of the
your,
retrograde.
of the position of the planets? Because I got the sun the sun chart that you made for me, and I looked at it and all those squares, and I'm like, huh. So am I influencing what's going to come to me when you study astrology, like the law of attraction? Do you do that? Is that something, when I say you, I mean a person? Can a person do that?
I mean, that's sort of the fundamental question we constantly revisit, the uncomfortable question when we're talking about divination and fortune telling. Even in as a tarot
That's
reading,
true.
there's a very uncomfortable. You could call it a superstition, you could call it law of attraction, but we do have this belief that, oh no, if there's a bad card reading, I pull the death card, I pull the 10 of swords, that's going to actually impact the future outcome in my life. And so people, I think that's where the fear of tarot comes from. We fear divination because we're afraid that if someone gives a bad prophecy, that it's going to happen because the words came out of your mouth. And that goes toward
Right.
how, as a society, we're afraid to say the names of enemies or say the names of bad people. Just like, oh, you can't say the name Voldemort in Harry Potter. Like,
I was going to say that. Yeah.
but that's real. But it's actually real in this society. If you think about just a few years back, how people were like, oh, we can't say the name Trump. Don't use his name. They will talk around his name. So that idea is really baked into us on some deep soul level where we want to avoid it. And so because of that, I don't know if we see something, we see Mercury retrograde, because we saw it, we've baked it into our psyche, now we're making something happen. Is that the case? I don't think I know enough. That's asking a much bigger question of how does the universe work? And I don't know how the universe works.
I know.
So,
I was about to ask you that.
so is it I see something in a chart and now I make it happen on some subconscious level? Or is it that I happen to see it because the universe is warning me something is happening so that I can prevent it? Which way is it? I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. So let me, well, what happened this week, really, a lot of it was out of my control. So, I know part of the answer to that, but is that it was out of my control. But when I read tarot, I look at it as reading the energy at the present time.
Mhm.
And if I don't like this, I can change it. I can work on changing a few aspects of things that I would normally do, but I'm like, no, I need to learn something else and I need to grow from this before, this big, huge thing happens. Can you do that with astrology?
Yeah, I absolutely believe you can. And at least in Chinese philosophy, we absolutely believe that. So the birth chart shows you what you're born with. And if you kind of ride the waves of your fate, then that's what's purportedly going to happen. Well, you can use karma, you can use good deeds, beneficent acts, meditation. There's a lot of different like spiritual concepts that you can use to change and alter the course of fate. So I absolutely believe that. And I actually see that in astrology as well. The birth chart just gives you like not prediction, but it gives you a sense of what you were born with, right? And then what you do with that is a totally different story. How you want to nurture that is up to you. I absolutely 100% believe that in tarot or astrology.
Okay. Now, is it very difficult learning astrology? I'm very intimidated by it, to be honest with you. When I look at the chart, I'm like, whoa, there's a lot of geometry and I can see a Libra in there somewhere.
What I would do is start small, right? So just for example, take your birth chart and just point at something, anything, point at Venus, point at house 10, and then start asking the questions, what does this mean? How do I interpret this very specific thing in my chart? And then go and find the answer to that. So then you have to proactively look in different books, look at different resources to figure out the answer to that one specific question. And then you're like, okay, I need more context. So that thing that you looked at, for example, house 10 in your birth chart or Venus in your birth chart, see if you can collect birth charts from your friends, family members, or even celebrities, because you can find that information online. So find the birth charts of many different individuals and only look at their Venus and compare that to what you think you know about the person and their life path, and start using that to build your knowledge. And then compare and contrast that with what people say about Venus or house 10 or house 12. And I think that's a very easy step-by-step way to learn astrology. I think if you kind of take it back to, I want to know the entire chart instantly tomorrow, that's why it's intimidating. People want to know everything right away, and that's why they're very scared of astrology.
Yeah. That intimidates me actually about the tarot. These tarot cards are over 20 years old, and I use them, but I don't use them because I'm intimidated by them. But I'm not intimidated by the oracles. So, but I understand that, and astrology is the same way. But I've had some great people that have read my chart, and I'm very grateful to it because it gave me a lot of information. It really did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it looked like it did for me. It does for me as well. It's
Good.
attracting me, and
Mm-hmm.
when I look at the
Good.
chart, it's not the astro. What is it called? The Astro Chart app that you
Oh,
sent me. It
Oh,
really is
Astro
more
Dean?
detailed.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it Astro Dienst you're talking about, where you can put all your information? There's one
Yeah,
like
something
that.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
that. Yeah, something like that. Now, I found something really interesting and I started working on it. It's not showing here, but it's really interesting for those of you who might be interested in combining tarot with astrology. And if you guys have any questions, please enter them into the chat. I'm collecting them right now, just in case you have questions. Um, your site, see the tarot. It's the six journaling prompt. Can't talk. The six journaling prompts for basically having some finding your tarot card keys
oh,
and using your astrology. Yeah, yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
I think that one is, you know how we have the astrological correspondences to the tarot cards. For example, Mercury is assigned to the Magician card, the Moon is assigned to the High Priestess, and so on. So what you do is you find the tarot card that corresponds with particular placements in your birth chart. And those are the tarot cards that you focus on in terms of doing self-reflections or journaling about yourself. How do these cards apply to you? How do you resonate or not resonate with those particular cards? And then when you get to the minor arcana cards, that's the deacon ruler correspondences. So for example, your sun sign, the degree of your sun is going to place it under a particular deacon ruler. That deacon ruler under the Golden Dawn system is assigned to a particular tarot card in the minor arcana. So you start pulling these cards out of the deck based on your birth chart, and then you look at the map that has been formed from these cards to do an inner journey or an inner type of reading with them. And so that's what
Yeah.
that particular workshop was all about.
And the way you explained it in the video, you were talking about the deacon and how the deacon moves. Like if you follow your sun in your chart, it moves deacon every 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
And can that help you reading your astrology a little bit more, or it's really strictly on the tarot? Can that help you? What I mean to say is, can that help you better read your chart using the tarot at the same time as you? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I always do that. So one of the reasons in the Spirit Keepers Tarot, the deck that I created, you have so many different correspondences. For example, I bring in the I Ching. I really like to consider Kabbalistic correspondences in the tarot as well. It's because it points to something greater. When you start laying out and layering up, stacking many different mystical systems together, then you take a step back and you look at what you've produced, you can see the synchronicities and the patterns a lot clearer. So it's almost like being a metaphysical scientist. When you put the different systems together, you take a step back, you start seeing patterns really clearly. So for example, if you take away the astrology, you can still do a fantastic tarot reading. You add the astrology and you're like, holy shit, you start seeing so many different synchronicities in the world when you just add two. Now you add the Kabbalistic correspondences and you learn the meanings and significance of the different sephira or the different paths on the tree of life. And then you add I Ching and what each of the trigrams and hexagrams mean. Now you look at how they build up and how they correspond with each other, and you start to see miracles. That's where you start to see the miracles. You see things that you absolutely cannot explain, and you can't even say you were thinking it. You know, you can't even say that it was your mind molding the situation, because how do you explain the synchronicities? So the reason I use the many different systems layered on top of each other is, I keep saying, proof of God. For me, it's about understanding the miracles of everyday life.
Yeah, and I was going to ask about the Spirit Keeper Tarot. How do we get it? Where is it? It's
Um,
sold out.
Right now it's sold out. So we printed 3,507 copies for the first print run. You might know right now there's a lot of international shipping issues. There's a supply chain issue. It doesn't even ship to so many different. For example, we've been having shipping issues to New Zealand and Australia. They didn't even the
Yeah.
U.S. Post Office just point blank stopped shipping to Australia and New Zealand for a very long time. There was problems with shipping to Italy as well. And so right now we decided to not do a second print run till we get a sense of what's happening with the economy on the global scale. Because it was just really, really hard to ship out those decks during the pandemic. So right now we're waiting.
Louis de Joy.
Yeah, so we have to wait it out to see what's going to happen with the supply chain issue, and then revisit the second print run. Also, I don't know if people realize cardstock and paper, the price of it on the materials level has skyrocketed through the
Yes.
roof.
Yeah.
It is so expensive. It was more expensive so I made, in terms of net profit, I made less net profit from this last print run than from my 2018 print run, because the raw materials was so much cheaper just in 2018. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Well, it went up with alongside the price of wood and lumber. Yeah, unfortunately. Do you still have an electronic version of I think you had an electronic version of was it the Spirit Keeper?
Oh, you mean the major arcana, the 4 archangel cards, 4 aces. So for the black and white first edition, I released the major arcana, the 4 aces, and the 4 archangels, or 4 tarot king cards, for free. So anybody can
Okay.
download those cards and print it out and create their own decks with that. That's still
Yeah,
on the website.
that's still on your website. Okay, I hadn't seen that. Okay, and I lost my thought. Okay,
Well, one of
so
the things that I wanted to say was I love the fact that I can get a journal, because I think that journaling is very important with tarot practice, with anything, and I'm championing journal again, but actually Benebell Wen's metaphysical journal is pretty good.
it's good.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really good. Yeah,
I have mine
I
right
really like
here.
it.
Oh, it's big. Wow, that's
Yeah,
neat.
but
Yeah.
how that's another thing that people just don't realize, how you can track your own growth spiritually, emotionally, everything else through journaling.
Yeah, I
That's
absolutely
right.
love it. Because I've been keeping a journal since pretty much my junior high days. Even, for example, the last 10 years, I love the fact that I can pull up a day planner from 2015 and then know exactly what I did on January 7th in 2015 and see what I wrote there. And because of the way I journal, I also document my emotions. I document my feelings in my journal as well. So I can go back to any day for the last decade plus, and on any days pinpoint exactly how I was feeling that day or what happened that day. And that kind of personal record is, you can't even put a price tag on it. It's so invaluable,
No,
and it's free. All you have to do is, in a very diligent way, journal and document these things, and to have that as part of your resource is absolutely amazing. And to hand that down to your future progeny is also amazing. So I
yeah,
cannot recommend journaling enough.
that's true. That's true. I love doing that, and I included the tarot in that, so that when I draw cards, it's right in there. Yeah, and the chart that you are including with the this is listen. This is my natal chart
Mm-hmm.
that I got. And then I got my sun chart right here.
Solar returns chart. Yep.
Yeah. And then for at the back of each month, you get the position of the planets.
The
Now
entire.
I wanted to is that the position of the planets in your birth chart or in your sun chart,
Oh no,
or
that's
that's the position of the planets
in the
in
sky.
general?
Yeah, in the
In the
sky.
sky. Yeah, okay, perfect. Oh, okay. And then you apply that to your chart.
Exactly. Although to be even more accurate, it's under the tropical system. It's not actually literally what's in the sky. What is actually literally in the sky is called the sidereal zodiac. So there's a difference between a tropical zodiac and a sidereal zodiac, but that's getting
Okay.
important. Yeah.
Okay, the side I can't pronounce it, but the side thing zodiac, that is my basically what my sun chart what is in my sun chart.
I use the tropical. So most
Oh, the
astrologers,
tropical in
yeah,
this.
most
Okay.
astrologers actually don't use sidereal. It's this whole complex
Is
thing.
that the Vedic version of astrology that use sidereal?
I think Vedic uses sidereal for sure. There's many different traditions of astrology in East Asia, and some of them it follows sidereal, and some of them do not. Some of them follow tropical. So tropical is absolutely a universal thing, and it's really interesting how you have that tropical house system, and then you also have the sidereal. Sidereal is basically actual. Like you look up in the sky, it's literally what's in the sky. So it's weird how we have these two systems, but every single culture has this concept of the two systems.
Okay. That version, Gina, is actually the Western version. You do for Western astrology. Am I correct?
In
I did
the
get that.
day planner, I do Western astrology because it's an English-speaking world that the day planner is marketed toward, and Western astrology is a lot more popular than Eastern astrology.
Yeah. Okay. And uh, let me see. Do you have any other questions, Kathleen? I'm going to start with the questions from the chat, if you guys have any.
Okay. Let me think.
I wanted to show you something. By the my daughter was born at 980 grams, 3 months early. So for me, that's a miracle that happened on
Mhm.
August 11th. We were talking about miracles earlier. Lots of babies born early can pass it off as normalizing situations, which is so true.
Absolutely. There's a lot of, I
Yeah.
think that's a thing that we overlook. I mean, the more I look into it, giving birth is so hard. Can you believe even in 2022, pregnancy is a very difficult thing. Bringing a child to term for historically has always been hard. It was like a 50-50 shot that the baby came to term. And even in 2022, with all of the medical technology we have, bringing a baby to term is still difficult. Can you believe that?
Yeah,
That's how miraculous it is to give birth.
it is. That is so true. It is. It is. The next question was if you had a YouTube channel. Yes, I just put, I'm just going to show you here right now. It's Benebell Wen. So please, everybody, if you could subscribe to Benebell's channel. There's also Heart and Soul Connected, Ailey here. If you could please subscribe to Ailey's channel if you have it. And Kathleen J. Lightworker. That would be another great channel. But we're sharing pretty much the same subscribers, aren't we? We
Yeah,
are.
we do.
We
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
So the next question that I have for you is the Chinese zodiac easier than the American astrology reading? And how do you know which astrology is the right fit for you?
I think it's
That's a
more
good question.
complicated. I think it's so much more complicated because one, it's based on a sexagenary cycle. So it's a 60-year cycle that you have to understand. You have to know the 12 zodiac signs. You have to know the heavenly stems and earthly branches. there's a lot more complexity, I think, to Chinese astrology than there is necessarily in Western astrology. I felt like I picked up Western astrology fairly quickly, but Chinese astrology, and we call it bazi, it's a lot more complicated, I think. So it's much
Yeah,
harder. It's so much harder. It's more
yeah,
scientific as well, in terms of there's a lot of math to it.
yeah, that's right. That's right. So, Ali, do you have any more questions?
Sorry, I got bumped off, but it's the way
That's
it
okay.
Well,
Hey,
yeah.
you identify as an occultist, and I really like
mm,
that identity,
Mhm.
because I don't fit any. I'm not I don't do the cookie cutter. I don't fit into any um uh standardized
mold.
mold. And um do you have a ritualistic type thing that you do? Do you, when, like, say when you're going to meditate or something like that, do you bring in ritual, or do you just sit down and meditate? Does what you believe in require ritual?
Absolutely. In fact, I would say my religious belief is about applying ritual to everything in life. So even in terms of cooking dinner, I bless the food before I cook. I think about the metaphysical correspondences of the ingredients I'm putting together for dinner. I even think about the sources of the ingredients. And so even when you're cooking, when you're stirring the pot, you bless the food, and everything is ritualized. How I wake up, even in terms of my day is very much ritualized. I wake up, the first thing I do is go and watch the sunrise. And as I watch the sunrise, you think about the planetary spirits, you think about the ascendant hour, you bless the god, like you kind of like you petition the gods and goddesses in your particular path. I light incense, and when I light incense, the way I light incense, though, everything is very ritualized. Even something as simple as, to this day, I can only draw cards from a tarot deck with my left hand. It's a superstition. There's nothing, magical to it, but it's ritualized. How I shuffle is ritualized. Everything about the way I approach life is ritualized. So I think what separates the occultist from the non-occultist, is that you apply a very ritualistic way of living to every day. And that's what distinguishes somebody who's a mystic from somebody who is not that interested in spirituality. And if you think about what you already do, most of us already ritualize our life. We just maybe don't use that terminology. But if you think about it, oh yeah, I already do that. So
But that helps live true mindfulness
Mm-hmm.
because everything is so ritualistic and you're blessing pretty much everything you do as you're going through it. So you're really thinking about the present moment as you're doing things. So that must help a great deal with managing stress, managing anxiety, managing all the things that surrounds the issues that the modern people are going through today, doesn't
yeah,
it?
yeah, ritualized weekly baths. Even in terms of every time I sit down at my study desk or my office desk, you ritualize, and it's a very micro ritual. You ritualize the way you cleanse the space, and it's a combination of the physical decluttering and cleaning of the space. But while you declutter and physically organize your workspace, you also ritualize your intentions, and you think about how you protect that space, how you safeguard that space, how you put up wards on your table or in your room, in your office. And these are things that happen on a daily basis because they layer and they build. That's how you build a very strong fortress around yourself.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, Cecile bought your book last year and she is a huge fan.
Hi, Cecile.
That's
And
great.
Cheryl was saying that when kids sit and appear to be staring out into a window, that could be a form of meditation.
Yeah.
Or
Emptying
shamanism. They're probably
yeah,
moved there. They probably transported themselves somewhere else.
somewhere
Mhm.
else.
Yeah, exactly.
Closer to
Exactly.
source. Yeah. I have a
Yeah.
question because you were bringing up how you, um, sort of the chop wood, carry water thing, before and after enlightenment, and I love that. I would like to know if you have any thoughts about the transmutation of energies, because if we go into a restaurant, let's say, and the cook is in that restaurant, we don't know anything about who's cooking our food. They could be angry. In fact, we see people a lot on those shows that are angry back there, and you're sort of ingesting that anger because any way of transmuting that anger from the
Isn't it
food?
interesting? So many religious cultures want you to pray or send
Right.
gratitude into the world, or come together as everyone kind of forms a circle. They hold hands. Every culture. This is not one
Yeah,
religious
that's
culture.
very
Every
true.
culture
Yeah.
has some even when I went to Buddha camp, when I was in a monastery, they made us kids sit down, hold hands around, form a circle at your table, bow your heads, and send gratitude to Buddha and Bodhisattvas before you start eating. So all these little things, it's like, I think on some intuitive level, we know as a human culture that there is something to this of transmuting the energy before you imbibe it, so it's healthier. Why do you wash your vegetables before you cook it, right? And so there's a sense of spiritually washing your food or cleansing your food before you imbibe it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe ritual is conscious, mindful awareness, acknowledging infinite small and infinite all encompassing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's very true. That's very true. So, all right. So, any last thought, anyone? I want to say thank you so much, Benebell, for coming to our channel and sharing with you your wisdom. That was absolutely fantastic.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I
Yes,
feel like I've
thank
just
you.
been with a diva here in the diva.
Exactly. Yeah, I have anyway. By the way, somebody asked, and I forgot it. There is some online classes. There is some online classes that you have on your website. Uh, One is of astrology, and there's the holistic tarot as well. And is there any other one? You're so generous. You're giving everything to us.
There's a
Everything.
lot. In terms of those, what I would recommend first, for example, astrology. I have a free download of a astrology glossary and astrology resources. So I would go there first and download and do a free course with the materials. And then if you're like, oh, I really get this is for me, then you can invest in other courses, But I think before you invest in courses based on a personality, I would go and actually look at the materials. And I'm not just saying that for myself. We do that a lot in our spiritual communities. You look at a personality and you kind of blindly buy courses, and then you never actually do the course because you didn't buy with the right mindset. So I think look at the free materials, download it, create a course for yourself in a very disciplined way, go through that material, and that will give you a sense of whether or not it's right for you. So that's my
Okay.
recommendation for I Ching, because I have free I Ching materials, free
Yes.
magic materials, all of that. Go to the free stuff first to see if it resonates.
Love the I Ching.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's wonderful the wealth of information that Belle
Yeah.
is
I mean,
giving.
you just don't understand how grateful we all are.
Yeah.
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 It's very meaningful to
you.
us. So
Yeah.
thank you very much, everyone, for coming. We had the Viviane Flowing, Andrea, Janet P, Cecile, Melinda, uh, uh, Andrea, Cheryl, Gina, and I know I'm missing some. We had a few people in the chat and a few people watching, and there was the time management was terribly poor on my part, so I apologize to all. And we'll have the next Diva Den on Wednesday in 2 weeks on Kathleen J. Lightworkers Tarot.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
yay! Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Have a great
everybody.
Saturday. Bye bye.
Okay.